So thank you all for coming. Let's start by setting our motivation for both teaching and taking a teaching. There's lots of reasons lots of bad reasons to be here. I couldn't think of anything else to do in Brooklyn. I guess. Or that you came so that you could learn something so you'll feel more superior to other people. Or you came to teach something so you'd feel like a big shot teacher. So to watch our minds and to be careful that we're here for the right reasons, which is to learn how to be happy, how to live a good life, and how to be of service to others. The purpose of a spiritual life isn't to be better than others, but to be better for others. And so with that motivation, we'll start. I'm very pleased to be back at Go Yoga, Brooklyn, USA. Thanks to Lilia for inviting me back here. I remember the day when people thought about Brooklyn as like, gay class A. I'll never forget this car ride I had with a nun whose name shall remain unspoken, who lived in Manhattan, who's currently on a 3-year retreat. Oh, maybe not. And somebody who had moved to Park Slope. And there was a big conversation in the back whether Brooklyn counted as New York. So everything's changed, hasn't it? Brooklyn's the new Manhattan. Huh? So anyway, it's a pleasure to be back here. I thought I'd say a few things about the way I'm dressed. As maybe some people don't know that a couple of weeks ago I made a decision to on this tour to teach mostly in plain clothes. It struck me that the main thing I've been teaching for a while is that we're all equal, that we're all equal in terms of our suffering, we're all equally suffering, and we're all equal in our capacity, our capability to overcome our suffering, and nobody has more capacity than someone else. 100% Buddha nature. Everyone has 100% Buddha nature. And then I found myself like dressed completely differently from the people I was talking to. And it's one thing to be teaching in robes in places like Asia where they have a different understanding of that. But here it does seem to set people off, set people maybe apart and above. And that was not my intention. That's not the message I wish to communicate. Those robes, used to be rags. They're rags. They were supposed to be rags that you picked up from the trash and sewed together. And now they do still sort of maintain that kind of flavor because I don't know if you've ever seen the skirt, but they're all like patchwork, but extremely ornamentalized. And you have to go to India. Nobody can make them here because nobody knows how. And they literally cost, that one part of the robe cost like $100, $150. And that wasn't the intention. That was not the intention. So, maybe if we were trying to recover the intention of the original robes, it would be to just wear a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. But I felt like maybe t-shirt was a little informal, so I have my Hawaiian shirt. And so that's how it goes. The monastic life isn't about what you wear. It's about the vows that you take and the vows that you try to keep. So, everyone should be a little bit familiar with this now in a post-Vatican II world. Again, I remember the times when, in my lifetime, when if you were a Roman Catholic nun or priest, you could tell them like 2 blocks away. They were wearing those big habits, penguin suits we used to call them. And now they're all undercover, aren't they? So it's like that, it's all right. So I hope you don't mind. I feel more and more comfortable doing it. It was very strange when I first started. It was about 4 weeks ago now in Melbourne. And the first time that I taught outside the robes was the first time I had ever done that since I had been ordained, so 7 years. And there's a kind of a vulnerability, to just be wearing the same clothes that everyone else does, And but I'm getting used to it, and I think it's the right decision for now, anyway. Okay. So When I was in communication with Lilia about what to teach here, she suggested the title, and stroke of brilliance, as it turns out. It's a very apt title. From Victimhood to Mastery. And so we'll explore tonight, what we're victims of, and how we can become masters of our own destiny, how we can become free. And this is the point of the spiritual life, of course, to become free. In the Indian text, the words, Sanskrit text, the words for the goal oftentimes mean freedom. Mukti, like is jiva mukti, or moksha, it means liberation, it means freedom. And nirvana also in the Buddhist text, kind of has the same connotation. It means, literally, nirvana means to blow out, as maybe you know, blow out. And I, for my whole life, nearly 60 years of my life, well, 50 conscious years, had always, learned that meant blowing out like a candle, like that, blowing out like that. And then recently I heard, I think it was Jack Kornfield or somebody say, no, another way to think about it is exhaling. Nirvana is the great exhale. Blowing out, exhaling, the great relief, the great freedom. And so, this is the goal. This is our goal, is to be free. But if we're going to be free, we first have to realize that we are in bondage. We've never been free. Sometimes people resist discipline, abhyasa. They resist yoga, which usually means something like discipline, because they feel, well, then I won't be free. But we've never been free. And we won't be free by just going with our inclinations. Our untrained inclinations are not only not, just going with the untrained inclinations is not only a way to get free, it's a way to stay in jail, a way to stay in prison. We are imprisoned by our own inclinations. We call these mental afflictions in Buddhism and in other Indian religions too, klesha. So one of the first things that we need to think about when we're thinking about freedom is to get free from our own worst tendencies. Our own tendencies to get angry when somebody insults us, to be proud of stupid things that you're going to lose anyway, like money or possessions or youth or vitality or your ability to do a very nice downward-facing dog. You will lose all these things. And then we have this pride about them, or envy of what some little crappy thing in samsara that somebody else gets, that they'll also lose pretty soon anyway, and we're envious of it, jealous, right? These are our mental afflictions. These are our friends, our little friends. We go, and they're all in here, right? They're not our friends, they're our enemies. But we sometimes regard them as our friends. We coddle them. We make excuses for them. We sort of say, well, I can't help it. That's just the way I feel, or that's, I've always felt this way. When somebody insults me, I've always gotten angry. And we keep ourselves in a prison of our own making. So I thought, about half of what I have to say tonight is about being a victim, and then the other half is on being free. But I'll just cut to the chase. We are our own victims. We are not the victims of anyone else. We are not the victims of anything external to us. We have always been free. But we've put ourselves in a jail. We've put ourselves in a prison. We go, oh, I'm in a prison. The prison door has always been open. And we know I don't want to leave the prison. Some part of us likes being in bondage. Some part of us is like masochistically attached to not being free. And so one of my main messages tonight is stop blaming other people for your unfreedom. Stop blaming other people. Take responsibility. If you don't take responsibility, if you don't empower yourself, you will never be free. You will always feel like a victim. If you don't empower yourself, you are actually not a victim. No one's a victim, except for a victim. What do you call it? Auto victim, self victim, auto victim. We're victimizing ourselves. No one else can victimize us. Nothing else can victimize us. No event, no circumstance, no person other than ourselves can victimize us. We are victimizing ourselves. We are our own worst enemy, and we're the only enemy. We're our only enemy. It's not like my mental afflictions are my enemies, and there's a bunch of them in Afghanistan somewhere. It's only our mental afflictions. You know, in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, some of you know this classic text of Mahayana Buddhism. They say you have to really start thinking about your mental afflictions as enemies, and stop thinking about enemies as being external to you. So, you know, like take for example, maybe you think, like it seems like some people do in this country, that your enemies are the terrorists hiding out in some cave in Pakistan or Afghanistan. And these are not your real enemies. These are people just like you, actually. Human beings just like you, who, you know, they've got whole lives to lead, just like you do. They have families, they have friends, you know, they have other occupations besides being terrorists. You know, they have other things to do. They, you know, probably need to fix dinner for themselves. I always like to think that they have hobbies. You know, terrorists, maybe they have like stamp collecting, maybe in Pakistan, in the caves, and they, you know. I made fun of stamp collecting in several talks recently, and then somebody at the end of one talk came up to me and was like, "I still collect stamps." Yeah, it was really sweet. Like, oh, that's sweet. Everyone else is rollerblading and stuff like that. So that your external enemies have a whole lot of other things to do besides being, you know, terrorist enemies of, you know, the United States of America. But your inner enemies, your mental afflictions, got nothing else to do. They don't have families, they don't have friends, they don't need to make dinner. They don't have hobbies, no stamp collecting. Mental affliction like anger, jealousy, envy, pride, greed. These are your real enemies, 24/7. Got nothing else to do but to make you unhappy. And so that's one, okay? Freedom from being victimized by our mental afflictions. And then we'll start, when I get to the reading in a second, we'll start with the main mental affliction, which is ignorance. Ignorance. And here's, I mean, you know, we'll look at some text and everything, Yoga Sutra, just to, you know, because he's a yoga student and everything. But here's the main thing about ignorance. One of the main things about ignorance is thinking that your unhappiness is someone else's fault. That's ignorant. Thinking that your unhappiness is someone else's fault, and thinking that your happiness is someone else's responsibility. That's a fundamental ignorance. And, you know, we all are guilty of this. We all live like this all the time. As soon as something goes wrong, we want somebody else to blame. We want to start scapegoating and say, oh, well, it's this person who did that. This person's responsible. You see, you know, it's like this in our individual lives and in our social lives. As soon as a disaster happens, have you noticed? The finger starts going like this. Who can we blame? Let's say a plane crashes or something like that. It's immediately like, who did this? You know, is it a mechanic? Is it a pilot error? Who did? We got to find somebody to blame for this. You know, and when it comes to our personal lives, you know, we do the same thing. You know, I'm unhappy. I'm stressed out. I feel like, you know, things aren't going right for me. So who should I blame? See, immediately it's like that. And the one person that we never actually turn the finger towards is the only one to blame. And that's right here. See, if you're not happy, it's not someone else's fault. See, and if you're not happy also, it's not someone else's responsibility to make you happy. They can't do it, for one thing. No one can make you either unhappy or happy. No one can make you do anything, you see? Not a victim. Don't live like as a victim. Don't live life as a victim, you see? How many more days, how many more weeks and months to remain totally powerless over your own life? See? That's not a happy way to live. And there's no way that that's going to work out for happiness. To remain victimized and powerless will not bring happiness. Because no one else can bring it to you except for yourself. And no one else's fault that you're not happy. So this is my main message tonight, and if you don't like it, I'm sorry. But I'm telling you that this is the...
Can I get my donation back?
Yes, you want my donation back. This is an old, in the history of religions, this is an old pattern. You can see it repeated over and over and over again. This is at the centerpiece, really, of Christianity, for example. Scapegoating. Finding someone else or something else. Scapegoat, was originally an animal, a goat. And in the thus the name. Oh, you clever New Yorkers, you figured that one out right. Fast on the draw here. What they did in the old ancient Hebrew religion, they would just have a ritual. And they would say all our problems, all the sins of our community, we're just going to pile it all on this goat. Not kidding, okay? Not kidding. And then they ran the goat off a cliff or something like that. And we do the same thing over and over and over again. To this day, we're doing the same thing. We do this with our, in a public life and in a private life, over and over again. We scapegoat other people for our problems instead of taking responsibility for them. And saying I'm a grown-up, I'm an adult here, you see? This is grown-up time. I've got a friend in Los Angeles. He's coined a great saying for this. He's got small children. I'm going to put on my big boy pants. It's time to put on your big boy pants. Time to put on your big girl pants and take responsibility for your life. And stop blaming other people. Okay, so that's one. So stop being a victim of your mental afflictions. Stop being who is your real enemy. Stop being a victim of your real enemy, and stop demonizing other people. Stop being a victim of events. See, stop being a victim of the seemingly random nature of events. How could this have happened? How could this weird, unwanted thing happen? I'm just such a victim of randomness. You see, things are not random. Nothing happens randomly. It's a superstitious worldview to think that things just happen for no reason. And nobody really, except for modern Westerners, have ever believed this. It's only in our time. Here we are, so logical and scientific and everything like that. And we leave this huge, huge space open for things that could just happen for no reason. See? Nobody's ever believed that. Somebody did it. Some cause. There's got to be some cause. But we go, this is so random. And that worldview, you see, that random worldview also just keeps you a victim. It disempowers you. To say that things could just happen for no reason gives you no power over life. Absolutely no power. Just a victim, see? Just a victim of whatever's going to happen next. Fate. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be. Doris Day starts singing that and speaks. And we victimized ourselves with this worldview. We victimized ourselves with this idea, this disempowering idea that things could just happen for no reason to us, you see. And that's not going to work out either. You cannot live a happy life thinking that things just happen for no reason. It totally takes away not only any power, but also responsibility, of course. Responsibility for your own actions, responsibility for your own life, for directing your own life, for creating the causes for a different life. So that's another way in which we're victimized. We victimize ourselves by thinking that we're the victim of events or other people's actions. You see? Victimize ourselves. And so maybe that's enough on taking responsibility. We'll come back to it over and over again tonight in tonight's teaching. I've got a handout. Everyone get it? Anyone need a handout? Did you raise your hand high and maybe there's somebody? Lily, do we still have any at all?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So keep your hands up and you'll get a hand up if you're a good boy or girl. So these are verses from a number of different sources, Sanskrit sources, and one of the things I'm going to cover tonight also is, the opposite of being a victim is being free. The opposite of being a victim is being free. Free from being victimized. And there's lots of things that we can think about being free from. And I kind of just rehearsed a few of them. Free, first and foremost, from our own mental afflictions and ignorance. First and foremost. Okay? To not just be the puppet or the slave of our feelings, of our negative feelings. Things like anger, jealousy, pride, and so forth, these are not rational. They're not rational things, right? Anybody ever been angry? Are you rational when you're angry? Anyone unclear on that? Actually, the only people probably unclear on the fact that when you're angry, you're irrational is an angry person. Because an angry person, part of the mental affliction is that it comes along with this kind of clarity. Right? It's a kind of a faux clarity. Where it's just like quite clear that I'm right and you're wrong. Right? I mean, it's not, no gray areas. Very, very sharp kind of, clarity. And, but it's totally false. You see, it's totally an illusion. It's inside out. So, the mental afflictions are not rational. They're irrational. They're irrational because they don't make any sense in a lot of different ways. They also don't bring about the end that you think they're going to bring about. Bringing anger, jealousy, all these things. You're trying to use them to bring happiness to your life. Actually, everyone just wants to be happy and avoid pain, and then people get it. If they haven't been trained, if they haven't worked it out, if they haven't thought about it, if they haven't meditated, contemplated, and so forth, then just like by instinct, they think, well, I'll be happier if I let go now. You see? No, right? All this being pent up, it's being pent up, and I just got to let go, and that will make me feel better. And then we say awful, awful things to people that we're supposed to love often. See? It's amazing that an emotion like anger is usually directed at the people that we're supposed to love. Sometimes you get angry at somebody who takes your parking place on the street or something like that. But we can, generally that kind of comes and goes pretty fast. Or sometimes we're even capable. Here's how bad off we are. We're even capable of getting angry at inanimate objects. This happened to me just a couple of weeks ago. I had a major pissy fit about my computer. I got a new computer, and you know how there is a transition period where and the software is not all loaded and you can't find files. And it's like 4-letter words coming out of my mouth about the computer. Until 5-10 seconds into we go, computer's not really listening. Or when we, have slam your finger in a car door and you start kicking the car, that ever happens? And that can only go on for a few minutes or a few seconds, really, not even a few minutes, before you go, well, the car's not being hurt. But when it comes to anger with people, it's different, isn't it? Then we can really get behind it. And the essence of anger is the desire that someone else be hurt. That's what anger is. And it's so perverse that we actually say the nastiest things for the longest time at the highest decibels to the people that we're supposed to love. The people we live with, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, children, fathers, mothers, and anybody free from this? Anyone sort of say, oh, I've never said anything angry to my children or to my husband or wife? It's amazing, that we're capable of doing this. So we're not in control, you see, that's the point. We're not in control. We're victims. But who are we victimized by when it comes to something like anger? Well, I'm victimized by my wife because she said this thing to me. So I have to say something back. That's what we normally think, right? We scapegoat. So it's her fault. It's all her fault. If she hadn't said that thing to me, I wouldn't have lost my temper. Lost my temper means you went crazy. That's exactly what it means. That phrase means that you've lost any temperateness in your life, any temper. No samadhi. Samadhi-free zone when it comes to anger. Totally lost it. Lost it. So that's that. These are our real enemies. These are the terrorists that are victimizing us. Is some part of ourselves. It's just ourselves. Nobody can make you angry. And they go, no, but they said something. Well, how does that work exactly? They said some words, also known as syllables and decibels. Syllables and decibels traveled through space and then entered into your ear canal. And then something was like, how does it happen exactly? That then some kind of transformation occurs inside, you hear the syllables and decibels, and then you decide to get angry, isn't it? You decide, you say, this is what now, and in fact it's even worse than that, because we don't actually rationally decide it at all. We just feel like it. See, we hear something and we didn't like it, we didn't expect it, it was unwanted in some way, and then we just feel like, getting pissed off and yelling back. It's not even rational. Nobody sits down and goes, I wonder what my best choice is here. See, somebody has said something unpleasant to me, and I wonder what the most effective thing to do in this situation would be. It's never that way, is it? Nobody ever sits down and says, okay, let's reason this out. Should I just remain calm or should I just lose my temper and say all kinds of things that I'll regret later? So it's irrational. We're victims of our own irrationality. We're victims of our own habit. We're victims of our own tendencies that we just have let go unchecked over and over and over again since pretty much we were born. And so the spiritual life is to try to retrain your instincts. The spiritual life is meant to provide some discipline, a yoking yoga, a yoking onto your own worst inclinations, and that includes blaming other people. That also includes that, and taking the responsibility. So let's take a look at some verses, shall we? The victims of our own ignorance. That's our first, that's the first victim. The entity that we're victims of is avidya in Sanskrit. So these are from the Yoga Sutra. You probably know these verses, right? You learn these verses by heart here at places like Go Yoga, don't you? Avidya smita raga dvesha vinavesha pancha klesha. The 5 mental affliction, pancha klesha. Klesha, that's the mental affliction. The word that we translate as mental affliction. It comes into English in words like calamity. A klesha is a calamity. In the Buddhist text, they define a klesha as anything that disturbs your peace of mind. Anything that disturbs your peace of mind. So how many kleshas have you had so far today? What do you think? 7? 10? 100 billion? Gajillion? The right answer is gajillion, okay? You can't even count them all. Many people are having kleshas right now. Going, what are you talking about kleshas? I'm pissed off at that person and I deserve to be pissed off at that person. Don't tell me I can't be pissed off. Can't be happy and pissed off at the same time. Okay? Can't be happy. I mean, do you want to be happy or not? If you don't want to be happy, then remain pissed off by all means. Because that's pretty much guaranteed to keep you unhappy. If you want to be unhappy, don't forgive anybody. That'd be kind of guaranteed. If you don't want to be happy, blame other people for your problems. That's pretty much guaranteed to keep you unhappy. Because guess how many other people there are? Compared to you, there's a whole lot of other people who are all just waiting to make you unhappy, potentially. If that's how you see it, you see. So try not to have so many mental afflictions about, having mental afflictions. Having somebody point out that you have mental afflictions. Don't have a mental affliction about that. Ignorance is the field for the subsequent... The 5 mental afflictions are ignorance, avidya. Selfness. Asmita means thinking that an irritating person is essentially an irritating person. That's basically what it means. Asmi in Sanskrit means I am. And the ta here is a kind of similar to the English suffix ness. So I amness, literally. The idea that there's some kind of I amness to things, some kind of essence. And for example, a person that you're pissed off at. An irritating person that has the essence of being irritating from their side. Is there any irritating person like that? Who is objectively, essentially an irritating person? What do you think? Yes or no? Think about your irritating person. Does your irritating person exist objectively as an irritating person? That is to say, would everyone find them irritating? Anyone want to quick raise their hand and go, yes, I know somebody like that. I've had students do that. I've had people in classes say, I know somebody that everyone would find irritating. This is somebody who raises their hand before the filter goes on that says, prevents you usually from saying really stupid things that we all actually think. We all actually think that our irritating people are essentially, objectively irritating. But then we kind of if we stop to think about it for about a millimeter of a second, a millisecond, a nanosecond, we realize, for example, that irritating people have friends. And this really throws us for a loop. How could they're so obviously irritating? How could they possibly have anyone who like? And then sometimes we go to the trouble of talking to their friends. To say, how can you like that person? This is so irritating, haven't you? Let me tell you what they did to me, right? Try to talk to people out of being friends with you. Isn't it? So the proof that there are no objectively irritating people, people who have the asmita, the essence of being irritating, the essence de irritation, is that they're not irritating to everyone. They're not irritating to everyone. So if the irritatingness of the irritating person isn't coming from the irritating person, where could it be coming from? Take responsibility. See, responsibility. Don't be a victim. See, if you think that other people have objective qualities, like being irritating, like being aggravating, like being disappointing, sometimes we get really disappointed by other people too. Why is that? What have we been victimized by then? You see, and I'll just tell you right away. I'll cut to the chase. Your own expectations, and nothing else. It's not them that let you down. It's you that had the expectations that then they didn't live up to. And it all comes back to you. See, it all comes back to us. Stop blaming other people. Stop disempowering yourself. Stop limping through life as a victim. And asmita is a very, very important component in feeling victimized. That there are some kind of objective qualities out there, people who are irritating, who are disappointing, who are hurtful, or whatever it is, instead of thinking, you couldn't be hurt unless there was something in you that got hurt. You see? Nobody can hurt you unless there's something in you. Nobody can push your buttons unless you have them, right? Nobody can push your buttons unless you have them. And in fact, when they do push your buttons, you can start saying, instead of saying ouch and, F you, you can start saying thank you. I'm saying F you, thank you, T you. Thank you for showing me where my buttons are. How else would I ever know what I needed to fix, you see? If nobody ever pushed your buttons, how would you ever know that they were there? And when they push your buttons, then you can go, okay, time to get busy. See, time to work on that. They've shown me that I have pride. By how? By trying to humiliate me. How else could I ever know that I had pride unless there was somebody who tried to humiliate me? How else could I ever know that I need to develop more patience unless somebody irritated me? See, they're your highest teachers of these kinds of things. Who? Those people out there that you think have asmita, the essence of being irritating or annoying or hurtful or whatever it is. They're your only teachers of the things that you need to fix inside of you. They're pointing at it, right? Asmita. And then comes raga. Raga means wanting something, greed. I've translated it here as greed, raga. Wanting something that you don't have. Thinking that, you're not complete. That you need something else that you don't have in order to be happy. This is one kind of discontentment. if only I had an iPhone 4S. See, I only have the crappy iPhone 3. Siri doesn't talk to me. And if I only had the 4S, then I'd be happy. How's that worked out so far? I mean, not just with the 4S. It's just an example. 4S is probably pretty cool. Until what? Until the 5T comes out. 4S, 5T. I think it's the next, right? Yeah, I mean, over and over and over again, just thinking, oh, if only I had this, only I had that. This is grasping, this is greed, this is raga. This is the essence of raga. I won't be happy until I get X, or Y, or Z, or, and it keeps going. And then the other one, dvesha. Dvesha means if only I didn't have something that I do have, then I'd be happy. If only I could get rid of my brother-in-law, or if only I could get rid of this crappy job that I have, or if only I could get rid of, whatever it is. If only I could get rid of these 10 pounds that I'm carrying that I don't want to carry, then I'd be happy. See? Two forms of discontentment. For those of you in the yoga world, these are the two side channels, the energies running in the two side channels. This is the kind of fancy-dancy yogic inner body way of talking about two kinds of discontentment. I got raga running in my left channel. Means, in real life, in English, for real life people who are just like yogified, just talking to each other in yoga lingo, it just means I'm discontent. I want something I don't have. And then as I've got the dvesha. Dvesha is running in my right channel. Means I wish I didn't have this brother-in-law that I have. I'm discontent with something that I have. And that's all it means. It sounds so much better in Sanskrit with inner body and all like that. And so, as you hardcore yogis know, what the whole point of yoga really is to get the winds, the prana, to enter, stay, and dissolve into the central channel, the uma. What does that mean? What does that mean? It just means that you're content. It means that you're content. It means that you're free. You're liberated from these two forms of discontentment. So that's another way in which you can we can all think of ourselves as being imprisoned, being victimized. We're being victimized by our greed and our hatred, by our desire, by wanting, and by our wish that things that we have go away, by our discontentment. We're victimized by our discontentment. What if I told you that the whole goal of yoga, of Buddhism, of any kind of spiritual practice, any kind of authentic spiritual, the whole goal was to just reach santosha. What's santosha? Contentment. What if I told you that was it? The whole goal. But you go, wait a minute. That's not ananda. That's not ecstasy. I want ecstasy. Not the drug. I want to fly. I want rainbow bodies. I want a rainbow body that can walk through the walls and stuff. That would be awesome. I want more. See, that wanting more is itself keeping you from the goal. That wanting more, that thinking contentment wouldn't be good enough. So here's my challenge to you, okay? My challenge to you is that let's all strive for contentment. And then like a year from now, maybe we'll meet again at Go Yoga and we'll compare notes. How are you doing? Did you get content yet? And all the people who are content will be unable to say, this isn't good enough. Simply unable. The only people that will be discontent with contentment will be the people who didn't get to contentment. Because if you got to contentment, that would be good enough. That's what it means to be content. And then you can say, well, maybe there's a rainbow body, maybe there isn't. Maybe there's a nanda, maybe there isn't. But it doesn't matter because I'm content. Win-win. Can't lose when it comes to contentment. Can't lose. And what's our excuse actually for not being content? See, what's our excuse? Living charmed, golden lives like we are. Here in the Pure Land. Here in the little bubble, the designer samsaric bubble, where everything's going pretty well. Have you noticed? Prosperous, well-educated, at peace, at least in your country, nobody's bombing you. You guys are busy bombing everyone else, but nobody's bombing you right now, at least. See? What's wrong exactly? What's wrong? Got all these ethnic restaurants everywhere. you got all kinds of cool clothes and, cats. What's wrong? See? Why aren't you content? And the answer to that is because of something inside here, not anything external. So the victimization of being discontent is only internal, nothing external. See, we got everything. Come on, if you don't believe me, do a little comparison shopping. Get out of Brooklyn once in a while or something. Go look around the world. You don't even have to go probably out of the 5 boroughs to see a completely different life than you're leading. You see, completely. Nobody, I couldn't be sitting haranguing them about how come you're not content. We're not content because we don't have enough to eat. We don't have enough clothes. We don't have enough shelter. See, what's our excuse though? I don't have iPhone 4S. I only have this kind of iPod. I don't have the itsy bitsy one. It's got a big fat iPod. White, and I wanted black. It's at that level, isn't it? Pretty much. It's at that level. So for those of you who don't have the contentment mantra, here it comes. And for those of you who do have the contentment mantra, here's your reinvigorated version of the contentment mantra. This is a mantra that, most mantras are in Sanskrit, and so this one's got Sanskrit in it, so that you think you got a real, genuine mantra. And then it's got a lot of English in it, so you know what the hell it means. And you say this mantra over and over and over again, and when you believe it, you will be content. And not until. So when you get a mantra, you usually have to repeat it. That's how you get it. It's transmission. Say Om. Om. That's the beginning of the Sanskrit part. That's the Sanskrit part. Means here comes a mantra, beginning of a mantra, Om. Here comes the English part. I have enough. Ahum. Ahum is the Sanskrit part also. That means the end of the mantra. Om. I have enough. I have enough money. I have enough shoes. I have enough dresses. I have enough promotions at the job. I have enough friends. I have enough entertainment experiences. I have enough vacations to Lonely Planet countries. I have enough. And when you believe it, then you will have contentment, and not until. If I ask you the question, what more do you need to be content? And if you have an answer for me, that's why you're not content. If you have an answer, what more do you need? Well, I need more money, I need more this, I need more that. You see, that's why you're not content. And the only way to be content is to just stop and say, oh, I have enough of them. So that's actually the raga version of contentment. Then the devesha version of contentment would be something like, and everything I have is perfect. Om, and everything I have is perfect, ahum. Every person in my life, every sort of event, every challenge, everything is perfect in my life. And those are the two forms of, and with that you will have the winds to enter, stay, and dissolve into the central channel. That's exactly what it means. If you believe that. If you truly, and not just believe it theoretically, right? Not intellectually. Deeply. Realize, that's what they call realize, right? It's a cool word. Realize means make it real. Actualize it. If you actualize contentment of those two sorts, that's what it means to get the winds into the central channel. So then the last one's grasping, abhinavesha. Grasping means grasping to things that we don't have, grasping for things that we don't have, and grasping in a kind of a negative sense of kind of pushing them away. Ignorance is the field for the subsequent ones, whether they are dormant, dwindling, interrupted, or active. This is all from the Yoga Sutra, right? You've probably studied, many of you studied this before. Ignorance, avidya, is the source of all our problems. All our mental afflictions come from avidya. From not, and avidya doesn't mean that you don't know something. Avidya is not the absence of knowledge. It's thinking that you know something and having it be absolutely wrong. As we'll see in the next verse. So maybe we'll just go right to that one. Ignorance is asserting that impermanent things are permanent, that impure things are pure, that things that bring, sorry, that's sort of like messed up here a little bit. Impure things are pure. Things that bring, there should just be a comma after pure. Things that bring dissatisfaction will bring satisfaction, and things that do not have essences do. That's turning things around. And the purpose of yoga, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. The purpose of yoga is to stop the chitta from turning things inside out like this. That's what that verse means. This is the second verse of the first chapter. And then he later defines just how we turn things around. So let's check. Do we ever mistake impermanent things for permanent things? All the time. All day long. We're surprised by change. And change ain't going to change, okay? Change is. Things is changing. Everything's changing. You name me one thing that's not changing. And then some of the Buddha heads that go, I know, empty space. Empty space isn't changing. It's like, who the hell cares that empty space? That's big deal. That's not causing you any problems. Not recognizing that empty space is an unchanging. It's all the other stuff that's constantly changing that we think will stay the same. Or worse, that we think should change in the way that we want it to. And then it changes in its own way, and we go, whoa, I didn't want that to change that way. See? And that's being victimized by reality. I mean, of course, we're our own victims. We're victimizing ourselves. And this is a particularly virulent form of it. Of getting unhappy about the way things are. Are things changing or unchanging? Is your body a changing thing or an unchanging thing? Let's check. Changing or unchanging? And then it changes. It gets older, it gets decrepit, it gets sick, and we freak out. And we go, oh, this is... I didn't want it to happen. I didn't think this would ever happen. Well, of course it's going to happen. If you are born, you will get, if you're lucky enough, if you are born, you will hopefully get old, you will definitely get sick, and you will certainly die. And then we go, oh wow, how could this have happened? I'm sick. I got sick. I'm getting old, all the beautiful people in this room, doing your yoga and all like that. It's wonderful you're doing your yoga. But if you think that your yoga is going to somehow protect you from old age, you're going to just forget about it. You're going to come back to Lily and want your money back. Wow, I didn't think the sag would happen to me. The sag, the big sag. Gravity. It's called gravity. And after 50, 60, 70 years, they can't fight that gravity anymore. I don't care how many downward facing dogs you've done. Spinal twist. See? But then we're kind of always taken by surprise by change. See, things are going to change. So the way to live a happy life is not to feel constantly surprised and victimized by change, but to accept it, to expect it, to not grasp to things that won't change, that you think won't change, to not grasp to them. You can't actually grasp things that are changing. We can try, but it's a fool's game, right? Let's try another one, shall we? Are your relationships a changing thing or an unchanging thing? And not just, all relationships are changing things. Not just your relationship with your spouse or your, loved one or something like that. But all relationships are changing, aren't they? Relationships that you have to your friends, relationships you have to your employers, relationships that you have to your teachers. They're all changing. They're all in a constant flux. And then we go, oh, my relationship changed. I'm so unhappy. Well, what did you expect? See? Why are you feeling victimized by reality? Reality is changing. And it isn't going to stop changing. If it stopped changing, you'd be unhappy with that too. In fact, you'd be way more unhappy with that. Because it would just be freeze-framed. Just totally life would just be freeze-framed. There was a pretty good movie in the 1960s that then got remade into a really bad movie that was out for about 5 minutes before it went to DVD, starring the great thespian Keanu Reeves. It was called The Day the Earth Stood Still. Did anyone see that movie? That's right, no one saw that movie. One person over there saw the movie. Did you see the Keanu Reeves version? Or the,
I saw the original.
The original's not bad.
The Keanu Reeves, like 2 hours of my life, I wish I had that.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, the premise of the movie is that there's spacemen come to invade the Earth, and they have a ray that just stops everything. The day the Earth stood still, it just stops everything. So it's like a permanence ray, where things just become permanent, and nothing moves, nothing changes, nothing can function. So this kind of fantasy that we have for permanence. There's only one thing worse than not getting what you want. It would be to get that. to get permanence would just be a nightmare. I mean, it would be a horror flick. It would be like, like the horror, because it would be the most boring horror flick you ever seen. Nothing would happen. Nothing would change. You could put 3D glasses on and everything. Nothing would change. So we turn things inside out, and instead of facing reality, instead of embracing reality, we feel victimized by it. We feel victimized by change, isn't it? But change isn't going to change. Change isn't going to go away. So it's like tilting at windmills. You know that expression? I think it's from Don Quixote, isn't it? Don Quixote tried to fight a big windmill with a tiny little sword or something like that. You can't fight change. You can't grasp to things as if they wouldn't change. So are your relationships changing or not changing? Of course they're changing. And to grasp to them, to say, you're mine. I love you. This is this is like a really perverse understanding of what love is. For me, Valentine's Day is always like kind of a horror show because you get those little hearts, those little hearts that they give out, those candy hearts. I love you. You're mine. And there's a whole lot of, if you look on the internet for pop songs, there's a whole lot of pop songs like this. I did a wedding one time, I did some research on it. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds of songs that have some version of that. I love you, you're mine. Well, right? And so we've been conditioned to think over and over again that this is love somehow. That grasping like that trying to own somebody else is a proof of how much you love them. Which is just ridiculous. See, it's just a complete inversion. You got it wrong. Not just a little bit, like he says in the Yoga Sutra. Turn things totally upside down. We've vrittied it. Our chittas, they've vrittied it inside out. If you love someone, this is, I think, some sacred text that if you love, free. If you love someone, free, set them free. Is that the Bible or something? Sting. But it's true, right? If you really love someone, you're interested in their happiness. You're interested in what's going to make them happy. And you're setting them free to find that happiness. And in fact, you're helping them. You're trying to enable their happiness. Whether it has anything to do with you or not. See? That's pure love. That's not the selfish grasping mine. Can't grasp to other people like that. You don't own other people. And the proof of that is very, very simple. You could lose them at any time. Anytime. And that's not just with people too. It's with possessions, it's with everything. Everything's changing. Everything's changing. So don't be victimized by change. Surf the change. Surf the wave. Don't try to arrest it. It's a losing game. It's a losing battle to try to arrest change. So, a little renunciation goes a long, long way. Part B, cruising through here, right? Here we go. Don't be a victim of change. Keep up with life. And renunciation means that you've renounced the idea that you can freeze frame things, that you can grasp to things, that you can stop things. This is from I didn't even write what this text is from. The first one was from the Yoga Sutra. This one I think is, I want to say Ashtavakra Gita. Yeah, it is. You're right. It's the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So you can just pencil that in somewhere. Today there may be health, enjoyment, and no problems. Today I might be living in a, samsaric bubble here in Brooklyn. But life is fleeting and deceptive, and the body is just on loan. This is a little bit of a wake-up call, see? A little slapping around. Come on. Don't fall asleep here in life. Don't think just because things are going right now for you, if they are, that they're always going to go right. That you'll never have any problems. That you'll never have any downturns, economic downturns. That you'll never have unexpected events occur in your life. See, don't be complacent. Don't be victimized by your ignorance about change. Everything is changing. Today you may be healthy, but tomorrow who knows, right? I had my daughter when she was a little bit younger. It was like 14, 15 years old. She was living here in New York and had a babysitting gig in New Jersey, and was playing with the kids. She had her whole summer. She was done with school for the year and had her whole summer like in front of her, and she had all kinds of plans. Going to the beach, doing this, doing that, playing with some kids in New Jersey. Little kids that she was babysitting. The grass was a little slippery in the yard, and just in a second, boom, fell down, broke her leg, just like that. See, just like that. And then everything changed for her. Her summer was very different. You don't go into the ocean in a big full cast, leg cast. See, all done. Beach day, all done. And that's very, very minor. I mean, comparatively, compared to the stuff that can happen, that does happen to people, just like that. See, it's just all of a sudden can change. I remember I was living in LA during the Northridge earthquake. You guys are old enough to remember Northridge, or at least hearing about it. It knocked down a whole freeway. It knocked down the main artery of Los Angeles, the 10. The people were just in Los Angeles. Can you imagine that without the 10 in Los Angeles? People were using side streets to get from Santa Monica to downtown. So, there was pictures. I was living like 70 miles away from the epicenter, and it jolted me out of bed at 4:30 in the morning, 70 miles away. And so closer to the epicenter, there were pictures of like cops, on the motorcycle policemen, CHIPs, I guess they call those, the California Highway Patrol guys. And you guys driving along, and the freeway opens up in front of him. A big chasm opens up, and his bike just goes right into the freeway, and that was the last anyone ever saw of him, or, and stuff just like major stuff like that can happen just like that, I'm sure he wasn't thinking, oh, that could ever happen to me. And nobody in this room going, well, I hope Brooklyn doesn't open up like that. So, but it could. People living 10, 15 years ago, having nice coffee in Baghdad, sipping coffee in Baghdad, and all of a sudden their world's on fire as American bombs are raining down on them. You see? Boom, just like that. Whole reality can change just very quickly. So don't get complacent. Don't think you can sort of hang on to stuff. Keep up with life, right? Keep up with it. It's changing all the time. Keep up with it. So here's your next mantra. This is a new one I've got. Okay, for those of you who are like, doesn't he have any new mantras in it? I've got that contentment mantra about 45 times. Every time he comes to New York, he gives me a contentment mantra again. So for people who are discontent with this contentment mantra and want more mantras, here's a new one for you. Ready? Say it's like this now. It's like this now. It's like this now. And you got to keep up with that, because now, as soon as you say now, it's then. So it's like this now. It's like this now, and stick with the present. Don't try to like space out or rest it, kind of stop it or freeze frame it or reminisce about it all the time, nostalgically reminiscing. Or rerunning the videotape in this kind of like masochistic way. Oh, they said this to me, and I should have said that back, but they said this. It's like this now. It's like this now. It's like this now. And keep up with it. Today there might be these kinds of things, but it can change. Happiness is obtained only occasionally and with difficulty. This is Master Shai. This is like typical Buddhist pessimism. So if there's one thing that people know, there's two things that people know about Buddhism. One is that, that you kind of like are all about suffering all the time. Keep going on about suffering. And the other thing is that you don't have any God. So, like the suffering thing is like, it's necessary to embrace suffering if you're going to get out of it. It's necessary to notice it. It's necessary to embrace it in the sense of like, not trying to fool yourself into thinking it's something other than it is. Life is problematic. Dukkha, that's why you go dukkha. And to just kind of like hope that if you kind of keep busy enough and, keep going to, ethnic restaurants every night and, just keep yourself amused all the time, that somehow you'll avoid the difficulties of life is no way to plan for them. It's no way to overcome. There's no way to take responsibility for them when they do come and empower yourself to overcome them. You have to first recognize, Houston, we got a problem. Remember that? Houston, they're up there in their rocket ship and it doesn't work anymore or something like that. And they radio back, Houston, we got a problem. And we all got a problem. We got a problem. It's called samsara. And it's no joke. Oh, and then the God thing. It's like, come on, we got way more gods than you do in Buddhism. We got gods all over the place. And they go, no, but you don't have the God. You don't have Creator God. And you go, well, yes, we do. We also have Creator God in Buddhism also. It's me. I'm the Creator God. Of whose world, you suppose? Not of your world, I'll tell you right now, right? Of my world. I'm the Creator God of my world. And who's the Creator God of your world? You. We're all Creator Gods of our own world. Things are coming this way, not this way. Things are coming from us, not at us. And so take responsibility for your awesomeness. You're a Creator God. You created your whole life you've created. So take responsibility for it and say, pretty good. Could be better. I'll try to, we're all kind of like Yahweh's in training a little bit. We're kind of like Yahweh's with training wheels and, and we need a little help creating a better world. But we've always been the creators of our world. No one else has created your world except for you. Let's do a little thought experiment on that, shall we? Does anyone in the room here have an objective view of life? Objective view means kind of God's eye view. Not a view that's not influenced by any kind of prejudice or perspective or a subjective kind of training or positioning. A view of life that isn't a POV. You know what a POV means? Point of view. It has an objective POV, not a subjective POV. Anyone care to raise their hand and say, yes, I have a God's eye view? In which case, that means that we all have subjective points of view. Isn't that right? Is that right? Yes. Everyone going to agree with that? Keep nodding, okay? Yes. I'll get you. Keep nodding, I'm going to get you in the corner pretty quickly, okay? So everyone has a subjective point of view, right? No one has an objective point of view. So you could say that the only world that's ever been knowable to you, the only knowable world that you've ever experienced is one that has been filtered through your subjectivity. Is that right? Or yes or no? What do you think? Yes. The only knowable world. There may be an objective world. Who knows? I'm not saying that. I'm not going there yet. But if there's an objective world, none of us have access to it. Right? And we don't have an objective view of the world, so there's no objective world. It's just a subjective view of the world. Everyone all right with that? Everyone still all right with that? Somebody's going, wait a minute. Someone's already seeing it coming, so they're going, I'm not going to say yes anymore. So it's the only knowable world there has ever been and ever will be for you is one filtered through your subjective conditioning, through your perspective, through your point of view. Then what would happen if you changed your perspective? What would happen if you changed your subjective conditioning? What would happen to the world? It would change. It would change. The only knowable world there ever will be, also known as the world. We could say it either way. The world would change, yes or no? If you change your perspective on it, then the world would change. So who's in charge of the world? See, take responsibility. Take the power that you've always had to change the world. How are you going to do that? What do you need to change the world? What do you think? You have to change you. You have to change your perspective. How do you change your perspective? Can you just kind of go like this and like try and get a different angle on it or something? You just squint and change your perspective? No, of course not. You have to change your sense of self. You have to change your sense of who you are. So now how do you do that? We are who we think we have been. We are now who we think we have been in the past. Isn't it? Yeah? That is when we say me, when we say I. What we're talking about is a bundle of memories, really. Isn't it? Just a bundle of memories. Our self-identity. So what would happen if you changed your memories? You would change your sense of self, which would change your perspective on the world, which would change the world. Okay? So far so good? Still nodding? Yeah? So how do you change your memories? Well, you can do it two ways. You can change the memories that you already have. Can you change the past? Yes or no? What do you think?
Yes.
Of course you can change the past. We're changing the past all the time. There's no history except for revisionist history. Every time you think about the past, you're thinking about it differently. Yes or no? Yeah? Do you think the past changes? What do you think a historian, a professional historian would say? Can you change the past? What do you think? No? You think that a professor at NYU or Columbia would say, in the history department would say history doesn't change? Of course it changes. The accounts of history are changing all the time. Depends on the perspective, right? Depends on who's telling the story. And the stories change over time. The story that they tell about American history is quite different than it was 50 years ago. Quite different. So just like that, you can change your past. You can't kind of like just like make up the facts. You can't just say, oh, I wasn't born where I was, or I wasn't born with speaking the language I did. No, not like that. But you can change your interpretation, right? Instead of like holding grudges and being bitter and being angry and not forgiving, for example, you could forgive and let go of all that and live a much more happy life in the present by thinking about yourself in the past differently. Thinking about yourself as a free person from the grudges and bitterness, right? So that's one way to change your self-identity. We are who we think we once were. So change your sense of past. Change your sense of who you think you once were by exercising these kinds of things. Forgiveness and gratitude. Those are the main ones. Forgiveness and gratitude. And then, gift yourself with new memories in the future. When are we creating the memories that we will remember in the future? Now. You see? Now. And if you start living a good life, a clean life, a content life, a happy life, a life that's more interested in others than you are in your own selfish desires and so forth, you will think about yourself differently later. Right? You're gifting yourself with new memories. When instead of thinking about yourself as like being a kind of a crappy person who was just, pushing their way onto the subway and trying to get ahead in life, start thinking of yourself as a person who is, trying to be kind, trying to be generous, trying to be, compassionate, and then you will change you. Okay, so we'll work it all out again. Then you will change your sense of self, right? You'll change your sense of self because you'll think about yourself differently. You've gifted yourself with new memories, which will change your perspective on the world, which will change what?
The world.
The world. Okay? Now, everyone who followed that along, who went like this, all the people who said, I'm not thinking about this anymore, you're off the hook in a way. You can remain deluded and ignorant and all like that. But people who went like this, now the responsibility is on you. You see? It's not Barack Obama's responsibility. It's not the Pope's responsibility. It's not the Dalai Lama's responsibility. It's your responsibility to change the world. How? Work it out. Come on, you can do this. By changing you. Okay? By changing you. Makes sense? Yeah. It's easy kind of to say, but it's hard to accept. It's hard to accept that's an awesome responsibility, actually. Awesome responsibility, but with awesome power comes awesome responsibility. If we're going to all be Yahweh's, creator gods, then we have to also take the responsibility over our creation. You have to take that responsibility and stop blaming other people. Stop blaming also stop blaming some, transcendental God who lives on Alpha Centauri or something, All right, let's look at the next one. Victimhood is an illusion. This is from the Ashtavakra Gita. Is there anyone who doesn't know the Ashtavakra Gita? This is a really amazing text. Ashta means 8, as you know, from Ashta Anga. And Avaraka means crooks, crooked limbs. He was the sage with the 8 crooked limbs. And the Gita, of course, means song, like in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the song of the Lord. Ashtavakra Gita is the song that the guy with 8 crooked limbs sings. And actually it's a song that's sung as a duet. It's a conversation between the sage, Ashtavakra, the teacher, and his pupil named Janaka, who's a king. And for those of you who know the Bhagavad Gita, it's a very interesting contrast. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a similar kind of a conversation between a student and a teacher, right? Between Krishna and Arjuna. But that conversation goes on forever. Like 18 chapters of Arjuna going, I don't get it, I don't understand, what, huh? And Krishna going, well, how about this, and then, what? In the Ashtavakra Gita, Janaka, the student, asks one question. So basically, like, how should I live? How do I live a good life? And his teacher gives him about 18 verses of an answer. That's chapter 1. And chapter 2 begins with the phrase, aho. That's Janaka says, aho. What do you suppose that means? Aho.
True.
Aha. It means aha. It's true. I get it. Aho means I get it. Whoa. It means whoa. OMG, And that's all he needs to hear. Just, a few verses, a few words from the teacher, and boom, he's done. And then the rest is just a kind of conversation between equals. And that also is the goal of a spiritual life. To have a teacher teach you and get you to the level that the teacher's at. So that then it's just a conversation between equals. It's not to keep you in a hierarchized position for the rest of your, lifetimes, forever. It's not to infantilize you. It's not to keep you down. That's not the purpose of any kind of teaching, actually, spiritual or otherwise, right? The purpose of a good teacher of anything, academic teacher, a music teacher, a spiritual teacher, is happy when they see their student rising. You see? It means that they're learning, and are especially happy when they reach equality with the teacher, and are extremely happy if they become better than the teacher. Extremely happy, because then the teacher has really done their job. They created a better teacher, and that's the goal. And any teacher who doesn't have that goal in mind is not a good teacher. A teacher who is trying to keep you in an infantilized, inferior position for your whole experience with that teacher is not a good teacher. A teacher is a good teacher if they're trying to make you free, including free of the relationship with the teacher, if you see what I mean. Yeah, the hierarchized relationship at least. In Sanskrit, there's a very, very important Sanskrit term, Kalyana Mitra. Kalyana Mitra. Mitra means friend. Kalyana is usually translated as spiritual friend. It's not Kalyana dictator. Kalyana like big cheese. It's Mitra, your friend. It's supposed to be your friend, spiritual friend. So I'm going to end class with something about the Guru if I ever get to it, okay? But since I didn't get to it yet, that'll be a little tidbit, okay?